Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about the object methods. So we learned objects just like arrays can hold different types of data and they even can hold arrays. And in fact, they can hold objects inside objects, but we can take it even further and further. Remember how I said the functions are really just another type of value, and if a function is just a value, then that means that we can create a key value pair in which the value is a function, and then that means that we can in fact add functions to objects. So let's see that now. You can take this example from the previous objects, or else I'm taking here a custom object here. So this is the object here, and also here I am going to add a one more value like boolean value here. So as driver license. Here I am going to set this to true, for example here. Okay. But now let's also add a function here as a key value pair. So to do that, all we need to have to do is to add another key here. And the function that we want to add here again is the calculate age function. So for that, we are just going to write down here. So here we are going to declare birth year. And then here we'll return the value. For example, present year is 2037 minus the birth year. Okay. And declare a constant cal age. Here we are going to set this to function birth year. And then we return the same. So as you can identify between this and this, here we are storing this in the constant, but here as you can see the major only difference here is the syntax here. Okay, here the difference is just the syntax, because now calculate age is not just a regular variable here, but it is a property of Jonas object here. Okay, therefore we use this colon here, and the rest here is exactly the same. That is why it is very important to understand what a function expression actually is, because here we need to function expression to create this method, and that's what this function is called. So any function that is attached to an object is called a method. Of course, we couldn't have used function declaration and it doesn't work here. So let me just add this in here. So let me just show you here. So for now, let me remove this and we'll just add it here. So as you can see here, we got an error. So here we need an expression. So indeed it will work. So if you can think of a function as simply being values, then you can see that a method is actually also a property. It happens to be a property that holds a function value. So just like we can access any other property, we also can access the calculate age property or method. So let's go ahead and remove this here. So here we'll do the thing. So here we won't be using any dot operator. Yeah, here we got our output. So here we are using the dot operator and bracket operators here. So the first thing that happens here is that Jonas calculate age is computed, and this it will become the function value, and then with the parenthesis we call that function, and we call that function value here and passed in 1991, and same thing here. All right, this birth year 1991 that we passed on here as an argument to this method is all actually defined in Jonas object itself up here, right? Okay, so we have already this into Jonas object, and so writing the same number here is not ideal because we might make a mistake and pass it in the wrong year. For example, if we give here 1992 and then this returns a wrong, we when we do this accidentally, this value here 1992, as you can see, it doesn't change any value. This is wrong. Even if we do accidentally 1992, it is wrong. Even if we don't make mistakes, it is wrong. 1991, let's just go ahead and put it back here as well, 1991. Okay, so this is not still ideal, and we are not keeping this code right, so we are violating the don't repeat yourself principle. So if we know the birth year of Jonas, it would be only be written in one place, not in multiple places, because it might change it everywhere. That's always the philosophy that we need to keep in mind. It so if we could actually access the birth year property directly from Jonas object instead of passing it in, it turns out to it turns out we can do that because every method in JavaScript will give access to a special variable called this. So here we'll return this in 1991. So and what can we do is in this calculate age function, we can read the birth year directly without passing it in as a parameters here in this function. Okay, so let's go ahead and see that how it is done. Let me just go ahead and turn this off, and also let me just for now turn this off because we don't want multiple values. So here we are going to declare. So inside parentheses we are not declaring here anything. Okay, so as you said, we are declaring this. So here we won't be declaring here anything. As you can see, so this shows our console this, and here this shows calculate age in the object, so 46. So this variable is equal to an object on which the method is called, or it is equals to object calling the method. So down here is calculate age function, and the object that is calling the method is Jonas, because that's where the dot is, and the object that is calling the calculate age method here in Jonas. So that means that inside this method the variable or the keyword will point towards the Jonas. So let me just turn this off here. So let me just copy this multiple times. So the Jonas object here is the one who is calling the method. So this function, see here, Jonas dot calculate age, whatever happens before the dot is the one who is calling the method. Here it is Jonas. Then this birth year, of course, the value that we have right here If you don't understand this, pause and rewind a bit to make sure you get yourself clear. Now you might argue that maybe we don't need this continuous keywords. Why not just do Jonas.birth here instead? Well, that's because we would still violate the don't repeat yourself principle and put out in the same here. So when we use Jonas.to, we have to go and print out everywhere. We need to just change. So as you can see, Jonas is not defined, so we have to use Jonas 2. As you can see, we got our output. So again, it violates the rule don't repeat yourself. So let's just go ahead and put it back normal. Okay. So let's say we want to access the age multiple times throughout our program, so that it wouldn't be like couple of times console.log calculate age like multiple times here like we did. So what happens here is the function gets called total number of times, 4 times, as you can see the output here. And in this case, that's not a big deal, but it might be like a heavier computation that actually takes some more time. So it would be a bad practice to do this multiple times. Instead, we can do is calculate age once, then store it in an object, and then what we need it is what we need it at a later point, we can just retrieve the age as a property from the object. So let's see that how we can write. So let me just go ahead and turn this off. Okay, here we are going to write again calculate age function. So the parenthesis here we'll write this dot age. So and also here we need to change age. So we won't be required here any parentheses. So we are just directly calling this out. Okay. As you can see, we got our output here. So this is the most efficient way. Now let's have a small challenge. Okay. So I want you to write a method called get summary, and this method should learn a string which should kind of summarize the data about Jonas. Example string, Jonas is 30 years old, teacher. So let's say if I have a driver's license or not, and he has a driver's license, then you execute. If false, it should say that he has no driver's license. So this time I want you to write a method on your own. So pause this video and try to do it on your own. So let's just start writing the code. So as per our questions, it should be 30 years, right? So I'm just going to change the birth here to 2007 here. Okay. Here, let's just go ahead and write this code here, right here, console.log. So here we'll create that inside here. So get summary. function. Here we'll write return and let's go ahead and run it here. Yeah, here we forgot to add the comma. See, and here we forgot to add Jumus dot get somebody. See, here Lod is 30 years old teacher and he has a driver's license. And if we give here the statement as false, see, Lod is 30 years old teacher and he has no driver's license. Based on this Boolean value, here we have changed from a license to no license. So that's it for this code, but I want to basically build a bridge between this method and the array method lecture. So remember that we used a methods on arrays previously. So where is this arrays concept? Yeah, here friends.push 23, as you can see this in the arrays line. So let's say that friends.push, and so we have an array on these, and there we call a method. So just like we did in this video now. So what this means is that arrays are actually also objects. They are special kind of objects, and so they have functions or in the words. So they have methods that we can use to manipulate them, like push, pop, shift and unshift and many more. Okay, all right, in this lecture we created our own method and on our own methods and on our own objects, but here we basically used built-in methods on arrays, and so that means arrays are actually also objects. That's why they can have methods as well, and later we can dive deeper into why things works like this. So moving on to this, so that's it for this video.